Good talk, Pastor. Oftentimes when I see debates on social media and stuff, I see people are very surface level where you could hear, and I know you've heard this like a million times, that Christianity is the quote unquote white man's religion and the Bible is the white man's book. As a black pastor, how do you fight against that false narrative?
Yeah, I don't even fight against it because Western Christianity is the white man's religion.
Yeah.
Western Christianity is the white man's religion.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You're correct.
The way that Europe colonized Christianity and then imposed it on us, it was curated with the intent of expanding Eurocentric power.
Yep.
Right. So yes, Western Christianity, fundamentalism, is a white man's religion. But Christianity is so diverse. And I'm not even here as a Christian apologist. I'm not trying to convince anybody to be a Christian. I don't even identify personally as a Christian. I identify as a spiritual humanist who follows the way of Jesus. If you want to call me a Christian, that's fine. If you want to say I'm not a Christian, that's fine too. I'm not really invested in it. I still also take seriously history. And Western Christianity is but one expression of Christianity. Western Christianity looks nothing like the way of Jesus. So I can hold both of those in tension at the same time. I don't have to throw away the ministry of Jesus. I don't have to throw away the scriptures because I know that Western Christianity has been a weapon of whiteness against black people. I can hold both of those in tension.
Wow.
But yeah, absolutely. Like, we were not introduced to a healthy version of Christianity. We've had to create it for ourselves in many ways by incorporating the spirituality that brought us over here.
Talk about it, Pastor. Yeah.
which is why I was like, we got to stop demonizing African spirituality.
Hey, sis, she over there saying, because man, we talk about this all the time, Pastor. So let's get into it. Hoodoo, right? Voodoo. We don't understand that our great-grandmothers, they were practicing this. Our greats on the plantation, they were practicing this through medicine, through spirituality, all of that, right? How do we start to destigmatize African spirituality to black people, which I find so crazy because even if you mention the word voodoo at a Thanksgiving dinner, people start getting uncomfortable. Hoodoo, all of that. But then I'm like, just 4 or 5 generations ago, it was common. But how do we start to demystify that, take away all those negative connotations?
Having more of those uncomfortable conversations. We at the faith community, we have a podcast called Holy Smoke Cigars and Spirituality, and we've been doing it now for 5 years.
It's crazy how time goes. Huh?
Yeah, we've been doing it for 5 years. So the most popular topic we have ever recorded is called Black Women in African Spirituality. Wow. And we just recorded our 8th installment of Black Women in African Spirituality. Wow. It has actually led to a digital community within our digital community. So we have a connection group called Black Women in African Spirituality where they get together and talk about their different spiritual practices, what they're exploring, what they're learning, what they're, getting into, what they're experimenting with, that type of stuff. So really, like, we have to destigmatize conversations around it. And we have to ask ourselves the question, where did we learn that our ancestors' spirituality was demonic? Can we please just stop for a moment and ponder that? Where did we learn that our ancestors' spirituality was demonic? If you're not ready to have that conversation, we're not having a conversation.
It's not time.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
if
you wanna start this conversation with what the Bible says, tell me where did we get introduced to the Bible and who introduced us to the Bible?
You getting too specific, Pastor.
So yeah, we can have those conversations.
I love it, man. This conversation, bro, this is so therapeutic. I love this. You said this one line before, and I was like, man, that's a bar. I had to write that down on my notes about we are getting bad theology from very popular people. And I think right now, especially pastors have turned into icons and people aren't actually following God, right? To where I remember, I think Pastor Bryant, he said this too, like, bro, here in Atlanta growing up, it was, I'm going to this church. Oh, I go to Wings of Faith, or I go to Christians for Change. I go to World Changers. Now it's, I go to so-and-so's church or this pastor's church. How can we start to get back to following God and not following popular people right now during the season?
That's going to be very difficult because everything is so personality driven. And so I think there's a responsibility on the part of the leadership to be intentional in how we bring people together.
Yeah.
Like, I try to make sure that I don't just strictly try to draw people to my personality, but I'm trying to draw people into community with each other.
Yeah.
So that people can build relationships with each other. Because I can't be everybody's friend. I can't respond to all of my DMs with all the questions, and I can't answer everybody's concerns. But if I bring people together in community with each other,
you can find that.
They can help each other.
That's good.
You know, so that in and of itself is a big part of it. Just making the focus community, right? But right now, so much of the focus is just content.
Yeah.
And with the focus being content, it draws people to a personality rather than a community.
Yeah.
So that part right there is going to be difficult because the people in leadership are going to have to make the change with that one. Now, for the people in the pew or in the laity, the congregation, I always say it's about getting in touch with yourself. If you get in touch with yourself, get in touch with your own intuition, learn how to trust your gut. Because I tell people all the time, God is in your gut.
That's a bar.
Yeah. God is in your gut. But you have to learn how to connect to it. You got to learn how to connect to what you feel. If somebody says something and it doesn't sit well with you, then sit with that and start to self-reflect. Why doesn't that sit well with me? Right? That's the type of work that is required of the people. You got to start to get in touch with yourself. But that's going to be different if you always listen to voices who are telling you to search for external validation.
Wow. Back to what we started off with.
Yeah.
Hey, full circle. Hey, that's how you know it's a good conversation, man. Pastor, you've been so gracious. I probably got like 3 more questions for you, man. So thank you. Beyonce, man, that's my wife's favorite. I love Beyonce too, but she's like a stan. But one thing that I hate is seeing Christian influencer after Christian influencer, Christian pastor after Christian pastor, calling her demonic, especially Black Christians doing that. Why do you think that they always try to say, oh, Beyonce, she's demonic? And then when I see like certain examples, like that's African spirituality right there. She's wearing an African headpiece. Are you calling Blackness, African spirituality, demonic? So why do you think that pastors and Christian influencers always say that about her?
Yeah, it's what she represents. They fear what she represents. Embracing her African heritage does not align with fundamentalist Christianity, even in the fundamentalist Black church.
Wow.
Which is why you have people like, Priscilla Schreier and other Black faith leaders who encourage, like Tony Evans, who encourage you to put your Christianity above your Blackness. I've seen so many of these different like Christian pastors say that Blackness is an idol because you're putting your Blackness over your Christianity and you're a Christian before you're Black. Let me tell you something. I don't get to wave my Christian card in any situation in this country. I don't when I get pulled over by the cops, I don't get to say, hey, I know I'm black, but I'm a Christian first. So like that's not how that works.
I'm a pastor too.
Yeah, that's not how that works. And I'm not saying that simply from the perspective of data about police interactions with black people. I'm talking about my own lived experience with police officers. Because a lot of times, you know, people try to say that, oh, you know, y'all are just feeding into these stories on television. Like, no, these stories represent our experiences. And my Christianity doesn't save me in those instances. So, yeah, I'm sick of people telling you you got to put your Christianity over your blackness. If you want to, you can. But the idea that it's idolatrous, if you identify as black first, I was black. I had this skin before I was a Christian. Wow. My people had a culture before we had Christianity. We had an identity before we had Christianity. But if you don't know your history, you'll say stupid shit like you supposed to be a Christian before you black. So that pisses me off.